Okay, we'll just start.
Okay. So, first of all, we got to thank Hashem for all the hostages that came home. It's a big nes, and we pray that Halavai Vaiter, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should continue to send us back the hostages whole and complete and safe. I didn't hear anybody say this, but I noticed that on Yud Kislev is the Chag HaGeula of the Mittler Rebbe. That means in Chabad they celebrate that the second Rebbe, the son of the Baal Tanya, was released from prison. And this coming Shabbos is supposed to be the Chag HaGeula of the Alter Rebbe when he was released from prison. And I just think it's so cool how the hostages started coming home on the Mittler Rebbe's Chag HaGeula, and that it should continue. And all the tzaddikim say that the Oros and the Nisim of Hanukkah are in the whole month of Kislev. So please, God, it is our fervent prayer, and we're grateful to the schus of the tzaddikim that help. So please, we should see Nisim and Aflos, Gulus, and Yeshuas, and Achamas. Yeah. Okay. So we are at the main event in Bereshit. The main event. We're at the drama of the Eitz Hadas. No, thank you. Okay, and we're about to introduce our arch nemesis, the antagonist, the Nachash himself, and we're going to read about the story of the snake and the woman and the man in the tree. So let's look at Perek Beis Pasuk Aleph. I'm sorry, Gimel Aleph. Okay. V'hanachash haya arum mikol chayat hasadeh. And the serpent was clever from all the other animals of the field.
Clever or naked?
No, although it's very fascinating that the last pasuk was arum to mean naked, and the this arum means to be clever. And it's not a coincidence. It's using the same exact word, but in a completely different way. Arum usually means naked. Naked means without pretense. But here we're using arum as clever as someone who's knows how to manipulate. Okay. Mikol chayat hasadeh. What's that? Okay. We can ask what the significance of that is. But v'hanachash haya arum mikol chayat hasadeh. The serpent was more clever, the cleverest of all the chayat hasadeh, all the life forms, the creatures of the field. Asher asa Adonai Elohim, that Havai Elohim made. Now, I believe this is the first time we're talking about a sadeh, a field. We talked about a gan. What's the sadeh? Okay. Vayomer el hayisha. And he had a conversation. When's the last time you heard about a talking snake? What does that mean? He had a conversation with the woman. And he said the following. Af. However, also, af, even. Ki amar Elohim. That Elohim did say to you, lo tochlu mikol eitz hagan. Meaning, af, even, did God tell you that you couldn't eat from the other mikol, from all the trees of the garden? What a funny way to start a conversation. And he's talking about the things that she's allowed to do. And he says, did God even tell you that you could eat from all the trees of the garden? Vatomer ha'isha el hanachash. And the woman replied to the nachash, to the serpent. And she said, Mipri eitz hagan nocha. From the fruit of the trees of the garden, we're meant to eat. Nocha, we may eat. Umipri ha'etz, and from the fruit of the tree, asher betoch hagan, that is within the garden. Note the contrast. The previous pasuk said, Mipri eitz hagan, from the fruit of the tree of the garden, without specificity, like just any trees. But specifically, which am I not allowed to eat? Asher betoch hagan, which is within the garden. What does that mean? Amar Elohim, God said, Lo tochlu mimenu, you should not eat from it, v'lo tigu ba, and you should not even touch it, pen temusun, lest you die. So the Nachash said, hey, did God say, even God said to eat from all the trees? And she said, well, from the fruit of these trees we may eat, but from the fruit of the tree which is within the garden, God said we should not eat, and we should not touch it, lest we die. Vayomer hanachash aleisha, and then Nachash said to the woman, lo motamusun. You won't surely die. And then the question is, what's the mot tamutun? You should have said lo tamutun. What's the double language? And he continues, Ki yodea Elohim, because God knows. Ki biyom achalcha mimenu, on the day you eat from it, v'nifkechu einechem, your eyes will be opened, v'hayisem kelohim, and you will be like God, yodea, yodei tov v'ra, knowers of good and bad. Okay, those are the psukim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol niyeh b'dvaro.
Amen.
Thanks. Okay. Here we go. We are on page 42, on the last paragraph on the page, Mem Beis. Ve'anachash haya arum, v'hinei, al derech pshat. According to the simple explanation of the verse, Ra'oi lasim lev, it is appropriate to take note, mi hichnis et anachash b'tigur zeh. This was your question. What was the plan? What was the thinking? Who thought to insert the serpent into this conflict? Lefatot et Chava, to seduce Chava, b'chol ma'amatzei koach, with all strength and all power, with full force. Me'amatzei is like ometz, strength or courage. Ma yiten u'ma yosef lo, what is granted to this situation through the introduction of the Nachash, and what is he adding to Adam? What is he adding to whoever put him there? What's the conceit? The ode, and further, Lama al isha amar v'lo al Adam. Why was it important for the Nachash to approach the woman and not the man? The ode, and further, Lama el ha'isha amar lo v'lo al Adam. The ode, and further, Me chari ha'af. Who incensed anger, she'amar, that the Nachash said? What was he so upset about? What's the bee in his bonnet that he had to say, Af ki amar Elohim? What a strange way to start. Af, what's af? There's like an assumption here in the conversation he's responding to. And it's almost like he's picking a fight. He's stirring the pot. Af, even, right? Kihu mishulal havana mishulal gezerah. That statement seems to be lacking in, it lacks understanding, meaning we can't understand it. Mishulal gezerah, and it seems to be a lack of decree. Meaning, what's the logic there? Ve'od, and further. Mi higid lanachash she'ha'elokim mana mehem pri ha'etz. Who told the Nachash even that there was a tzivui, that there was a commandment that they were not allowed to eat from the tree? Ve'im yad'o. And if he knows from whatever way the Nachash was informed that they had received a commandment not to eat from the tree, if he knew it, then he should have known exactly what was commanded. Instead, he seems to report a corrupted version, b'shibush, in corruption, meaning it's not the exact version of the tzivui. Shelo yochlu mikol eitz hagan.
Which part is he talking about?
Because it sounds like when you say ve'af, meaning he's questioning, did God say you could eat from all the other trees? What do you mean? How did you know, first of all, there was an issue about that there are trees I should eat and trees I shouldn't? And if you knew, you should know that there's only one tree that I shouldn't eat. Why would you think that I wouldn't be able to eat the other trees? Meaning, he knows there's an issue here, but he's obfuscating, and it's all mitushtash. He starts off with the things that he raises doubt about the things that certainly, meaning, who told him that there was a tzivoy at all? And if there was a tzivoy, and if he did know, he should have known the actual tzivoy. Why does he have to pick a fight and say, who said you could eat from the other trees? Okay. Shelo yochlu mikol eitz hagan, that they shouldn't eat from all the trees of the garden. Ve'od, ma la lahashiv. How does it make sense for her to reply? Mi pri eitz hagan nochel. She said a two-part statement initially. She said, well, God said we could eat from all these trees, and God said we shouldn't eat from that tree. Let her just skip to the chase. Let her just say, well, God said we shouldn't eat from this tree. V'dai la lomar mipri ha'etz asher b'toch hagan. Right? It would have been enough for her to reply, from the tree which is within the garden, God said not to eat because we'll die. Shehi hamaniya. That's really the only thing that they're held back from. V'lo ma sheyesh la heter le'achal. It was superfluous for her to inform him in what they were allowed to eat. Ve'od, and another question. Lama hosifa ala tzivoy be'amra. If you'll note, God only told them, don't eat from the tree. And she adds to the commandment when she says, lo tig'u, thou shalt not touch. Ume'ein yatsa lazeh. Me'ayin, from where? Where did she get that? Who put that in her head? Don't touch it. All we have on record is God's words to Adam. And somehow, really, the question is, how did she know? Okay?
Yep.
Now we could say based on all the discussion about how Chava was latent in Adam. So the truth is, they both received the commandment. You could say that. Okay? So ve'od, another question. Ve'amra pen tamutu. When she said, lest we die. God said, don't touch from the tree, don't eat from it, don't touch it, because right, lest we die. Pen, lest. Gam Kain, also over here, Shinta al mamaro yitbarach. She changes the statement of God, blessed be He. Shelo yomar rak b'yom achalcha. So it's very interesting. He says, don't eat. God said, don't eat because ki b'yom achalcha, right? Because on the day that you eat it, tamusun, you will die. Now, is that... It
doesn't say mut yomot? I thought it said mut yomot.
Here. She says something very different than what God said. Here, let's contrast. So before Chava is created, before Chava gets to know the animals, okay, Perek Bet, Pasuk, Tetzayin. Vayitzav Adonai Elohim, and Havaya Elohim commanded al ha'adam, upon the man, Lemar, saying, Mikol eitz hagan achol tochel, you should surely eat from all the trees of the garden. U'me'etz hadat tov v'ra, and from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, lo tochal mimena, thou shalt not eat from it. Ki b'yom achalcha, for on the day that you will eat it, mimena, from it, mot tamut, you will surely die. Okay? Now, what does she say? Huh?
It says,
yes, but she says, pen tamutu, lest we die. Here, look at Perek Gimel, Pasuk Gimel. She doesn't say from the tree with that which is in the garden, Amar Elokim, lo tochlu mimena, don't eat it, v'lo tigu ba, and don't touch it, pen tamutun. God said, on the day you eat from it, you're going to die. And she says, don't eat from it, lest we die. So now, the Alshech HaKadosh is going to raise an interesting point. The death that is incurred by the eating, is that a death sentence? Is that punishment for not listening to God? Or is it a direct result of the eating from the tree, and God is saying, listen, I'm giving you a reason why I'm giving you this commandment, it's for your own good, because this thing will kill you. Okay? So when God said, don't eat from it, because on the day you eat from it, you're going to die. And she says, God said we shouldn't eat from it, and we shouldn't touch it, lest we die. Okay?
So I've lost the subtlety of that last.
Okay, well maybe when we flesh it out. Okay? So she says pen, lest tamutun, that we should die. Gam Kain, over here also, Shinta al mamaro yitbarach. She changed the wording that was used by God, blessed be He. Shelo yomar rak b'yom achalcha. He said that on the day, He doesn't say, don't eat the tree or you'll die. He says, don't eat the tree because on the day that you eat from it, mot tamut. And there's a double language there. She says pen tamutun, lest we die, and he says mot tamut, you will surely die.
Right.
Lest we die means it's like it might happen.
Possibility that you might not die.
Right. Ki yimitenu Hashem, and God, right? Mot tamut, ki yimitenu Hashem, that God Himself will kill. Right? Amra, she said pen tamutun, lest we die. Yera'eh ba'amra, it would appear from when she says pen, the word lest, ki hamita misupeket. The ultimate conclusion of that scenario is in doubt. Meaning, the death is not certain. That's
interesting. Sorry, can I just stop you there? Because she put in her mind, I always thought the Satan is a safek, put the safek in her mind. But she already here, has put a safek of what, in her mind, of what God said.
This is not safek necessarily. Meaning the question is, first of all, where did she get any of this? So it could be that this is exactly what Adam informed her. Okay? But here, he's noting that pen means that it's not a foregone conclusion. It's not that it's doubt, she doesn't know if God's going to follow through. Meaning it seems like it's conditional. There's some sort of doubt as to what the trigger is and what the consequence is. Here, let's see. Okay? Yereh ba'amro pen, it would seem from her stating the word pen, lest, ki hamisa misupeket, that the death being incurred is not certain. V'gam shenimshechet me'elah, and also that it's an automatic repercussion or consequence of the eating. Shenimshechet me'elah, it happens. No, that it is. V'gam, and also shenimshechet, that it follows me'elah, from itself. Ve'od, b'tshuvato lo mot tamutun. And when he responds to her and he says, no, you will not surely die. You notice how he uses the same words as God. Lo mot tamutun. Okay? Lama kafa. Why does he double it? Ve'od. He could have said, lo tamutun, you won't die. Ve'od, and further, echat tsar koach lahachziv et kono. How did this nasty little varmint gather the energy to disappoint or enrage his creator? Meaning, why is he being subversive here? Who is this nasty rogue that's being subversive to God's plan? Shehu yitbarach amar sheyamutu. God's saying, no, when they eat from it, they will die. V'hu omer, and he says, lo matamutu. Nah, God made that up. What gave him the power and the chutzpah? Directly to say, hey, whatever God told you, that's not true. What? Ve'od. And further, Amro, he says, Ki yodeh Elokim, God knows. This is what's really happening. God's got an agenda. God's got a weakness. God's vulnerable. And he's covering himself. He's protecting himself. Sheyore ki mekanehu yitbarach lahem pen yu kelohim. He's presenting the situation as if God is jealous and insecure, right? And trying to preserve his unique status, lest they become like God too. V'hu pitiyut. That is a seduction. Umi yishma lo l'davar hazeh. Who's going to fall for that? What a brazen statement. Hamekaneh habor yitbarach mibruav. Could God actually be jealous of his own creatures? He made them the way they are. It's not like they have a faculty that he doesn't have.
Although we have later in Pasukim that God is a jealous God.
Is that what he means? What does jealous mean? That he is very, very protective about his honor. But here, it doesn't mean that, here we're talking about jealousy like you have something that he doesn't. Okay? Ve'od. One more. Ma omar. Omer, what does the verse mean when it says, Ve'heyitem kelohim yodei tovara? You'll be like God's, knowing good and evil. Ma inyan yachaso Elohim yidiyat tovara? What is the special idea of knowledge of good and evil, which is something unique to the purview of God himself? Okay?
Yachasu means what?
To relate, right? Ma inyan, what is the issue? What is the idea? Yachsu, to relate Elohim, to God himself, yidiyat tovara, a knowledge of good and evil. Okay? All right. A lot of questions. Okay, so this is going to be now kind of like the statement of what the snake is. Now we're going to explain what the snake is. Amna. However, hine noda, it is known, ki satan, hu yetzer hara, hu samech mem, hu malach hamavet. Okay, so we know, Chazal tells us that there are three forces and three dimensions that are represented by one entity. It has different faces in these different contexts, and it's all the same spiritual force. It is the Satan. What is the Satan? The Satan is an angel that represents, par excellence, antagonism against the Bria, meaning he's there in order to provide conflict, right? In order to have schar, and what his role is to always, he's the kategar, he's the prosecutor, right? As we know from the beginning of Sefer Eov. Hu Yetzer Hara, that's the Satan. The Yetzer Hara is how he appears to each and every creature, the part of him that's present in everybody that is their evil inclination, and that's to provide for conflict, right? Hu Samech Mem, that's the angel, that's the seed of evil itself, meaning the side of evil that he resides over, and it's also the angel of death. Okay.
4 names for the same thing.
Well, he has 7 names actually. It's a midrash. He's called wicked, stumbling block. There's 7 names. Anyway, so these are actually 4 different roles.
Okay. 4 different roles.
Yeah, meaning the Malach HaMavis comes to collect, right? The Satan starts the problem, right? He's the okay. Okay, maybe we'll get into it. Maybe we won't. But we know that all these, the force of evil in the world, has all these faces. Ra'ah, he saw. This spiritual force that's all these things, he saw. V'hinei, im ha'adam lo yechateh v'chai la'olam. If man doesn't sin and he lives forever, yivulahu lanetzach. The evil one will be swallowed for eternity. This is an existential threat.
Where's that from?
Where's who?
Where's he getting that from? this idea?
This is the Alshech HaKadosh. You've
right.
never ever asked that before. In
I
all
know,
the
'cause
pages
normally
that
he
we've
always
learned.
normally he always quotes what
He doesn't always, but oftentimes, if he has a midrash that he wants to analyze with you as a springboard to get somewhere, so he'll intertextually discuss the midrash or he'll compare pshatim. But here he's stating a fact, and this is let's see where he takes it. Okay, so the evil one is very, very concerned now. He's got a role to play, and as long as he doesn't want to become obsolete. So al kain, therefore he shtadel b'chol oz. Therefore he attempted with all his power, v'ta'atzumot, and all his ability and great power, lahachatio, to cause Adam to sin. Vayar ki lo yachalo. And he saw, this is the same words used by Yaakov Avinu in this week's Parsha, with the, I believe with the Malach, that the Malach could not best Yaakov. Vayar ki lo yachalo. And he saw that he could not best him, he could not have ability over him, ki kadoshu le'elokav, because he had totally sanctified himself to his God, davek bekono, he has cleaved to his Creator. V'gam chamro, and even his material existence, zach me'od, has been super purified and refined. V'lo yekal litamo, and it will not be easy to impurify him. Al kain, therefore, ma asa. What did he do? Halach lo elayisha. He went to the woman, asher b'tiv'ah, within her nature, kala lehit patot me'aish, she is easier to seduce than the man. Laman achar hitpata, so that after he succeeds in seducing her, he tielo meir lazar lefatoto. She will be the awakening element to aid in him seducing man. Okay, so he's going to get to. He's looking for the most vulnerable place. He approaches Chava, and he's going to use Chava to ultimately. His end goal is really to disturb Adam's relationship with God.
Can we just ask at this stage,
Yeah.
what is inherently what's the word I'm looking for? Why would we assume that Chava was more readily seducible?
Right. He
Adam?
just states that it happens to be a fact, but he doesn't explain why. We
Could
can
it be that it's because we describe the feminine as bidumut, and which is one stage later than bitzelma?
I think very simply, it's really by design, because women are meant to receive an agenda and bring it into fruition. They're made to. They're poised for that. Whereas a man himself is the agenda, sets the agenda. So there you have a conflict, meaning there would both be males locking heads, meaning you know that's a straight conflict head to head.
Right.
Whereas he goes to the woman is already open to an idea that has to come into being.
I see.
Once she's been corrupted, and then he's in a position, and she's part of him. He's already been, it's a deep thing.
You're saying that
It's a nature
inherent
of
in
femininity.
feminism
Yeah,
is to receive, and so therefore she's much more open to.
Yeah, I think her strength is her weakness. Yeah, it's not that there's something corrupted in her, chas v'shalom.
No.
It's that she is, meaning he is usurping. Man's not away, and he's putting the masculine energy in that relationship.
Right.
That's how I would say it, right? Okay.
Right.
In fact, the Alshech was going to say where Adam was at the time.
Uh-huh.
Where was he that they could have this conversation?
Right. Good
And what's her
question.
business talking to wily creatures?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's see. So he knew the end game. Remember, according to the setup here, is that man not falling is guaranteed destruction for the Yetzer Hara, and therefore he wants to push man down. He wants to make man impure.
It's a life and death, because
Right.
if man succeeds, he dies.
Right. So this was intrigue in order to survive. Right. Okay. So. Umagam lemasha amruzal, and also if you consider what our sages say in Bereshit Rabbah, ki ba'ala lo haya ima, as her husband was not present at that moment, as bidaber lahanachash, at the moment when the snake was talking to her, he halach, because he went lashut ba'aretz, he went to explore all over the earth. Ligzar yishuv b'makomot haruyim, in order to decree in all the appropriate terrains that which were worthy of habitation. Right? He was setting up, he was declaring where humanity ultimately would terraform and settle. Maram, like the sages say, ala pasuk, on the verse, Lo avar ba'ish v'lo yashav adam sham. The verse in Jeremiah says that a man did not pass through and Adam never settled there.
I mean, it's very bizarre. God never asked him to do that.
1 second. Let me just tell you what the Gemara says over here on this pasuk. Okay, so the verse says, Lo avar ba'ish v'lo yashav adam sham. It says that a man never passed through, meaning it's a place in the earth that a man never passed through, and Adam never settled in. So the Gemara says that pasuk makes no sense, because if Adam never settled in, meaning if I know that a person never passed through, then certainly I know Adam didn't settle in. So you don't have to say. So Ella lilamedcha. This is a Gemara in Brachot in the 3rd parak, I believe. It says that anywhere that Adam decreed that humanity should live, that became a place ultimately with a destiny to be able to support humanity even traipsing through. But any place that he, for whatever reason, deemed off limits for man, nobody even set foot there. Okay? So it seems that there was part of his mandate for Kivshua to descend to all the levels of existence and make that under his dominion, included also, the first stage was scoping out all the appropriate places.
I see. You're saying that he was instructed to do it when God said
it's part of his job. The question is, when you do that, you have to leave home. And the question is, what is the appropriate setup? Because man is meant to do work out of the house. What was, so anyway, he was doing what he was supposed to be doing.
Right.
Okay? Okay. Ve'af gam ha'isha hahi, also that woman. She's not like the role of what a regular woman does in every generation. Because the work of God's hands are blessed. It's not like she's a regular woman that's just going to be seduced, in thought. This is man and woman fashioned by God Himself. She is not like any other human that can easily be swayed through thought and imagination. That a regular person, right, in our generation, the Yetzer Hara is present, the evil inclination is present within a person's heart to place all kinds of thoughts of evil and to do evil. Al-Kain, therefore, Ra'a, the Malach HaMavet, the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, the Sanach Mem, he understood, Vihine, and he would need, behold, Tzarich Sarsur. He needs some sort of stumbling block, some sort of decoy, some sort of device used to cause man to stray.
Can I just verify something? Are you saying that Adam went out of Gan Eden to do this work? Or
that's what he's saying. All over the world. Yeah. Lashut ba'aretz, to explore all over the world.
Fascinating.
By the way, it's funny because there's a play on words here. That particular phraseology is used in the beginning of Eov to describe the Satan. That the Satan was shot b'chol haaretz. That he traveled and went around to see. I mean, he uses it twice, I believe, that phrase, and it's actually used in scripture for the. But so he's saying that that's what Adam Rishon was doing then, and the woman should not be so susceptible. She's not like you and me. So the Yetzer Hara knew that he needed some sort of aid in order to make this all happen. So what was that? Sarsur. Yitlabesh bo ha'Yetzer Hara hu Satan hu samech mem. Upe el pe yidaber bo. He needs a sarsur, some sort of vehicle that he will enclose himself in, and that way he will have upe el pe yidaber bo, and he will have a mouth that he could speak to her face to face. Meaning there's a spiritual force in the world that's not manifest, and it needed a direct confrontation, and therefore it took on form. It sought out a host in the physical world to enclose.
So you're suggesting that the Nachash on its own didn't have the ability and the capability to speak?
Let's finish the paragraph it'll describe. V'al kain, and therefore, charash, chacham, this this wise one plowed, right? He or it could mean that he was mute, right? This mute wise one, bikesh lo lesarsor, he sought after for himself a sarsor, some sort of stumbling block. Hu anachash, that's the snake. Ki hu yiyeh lo lepeh, the snake will be a mouthpiece for him. V'chol dvarav ba'im mi samech mem hamlu bashbo, and all the words being spoken from the nachash is just the words of the angel Samech Mem, which is enclosed in him. V'chol asher hanachash oseh, and all the actions that it's like a physical form for that entity. Okay? And all the things that the serpent will do, hu haya oseh, that's what, meaning it's clothing, it's not just clothing, it's a mouth, it's a faculty of speech in the hands. Exactly, it's the embodiment. Basically, he needed a host.
But that's so fascinating, because then why was the Nachash punished? If he was being...
these are all questions that demand to be answered. You're right. That's right. Okay? Excellent. Okay, Uma matkuba zeh, how sweet it is. Divrei Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, in the Midrash of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, V'zeh Leshanon, this is what it says, Rachav samach mem ala nachash, the angel samach mem, he was riding on the serpent, kirochev al sus, like one rides on a horse. And that's what our words to understand what this is. So the first thing you have to know is that the Nachash is not just a small character on stage, but there's how evil itself is being threatened now with the prospect of man fulfilling his mission. It desperately, urgently took on form by what's the word when you the opposite of an exorcism.
Invading the snakes.
Right, but then you have a word when somebody is possessed.
Possessed.
Right. The opposite of exit. Right.
Possessed.
So basically, he was possessed. Now, what did the snake do to win such a great prize? And it's like, okay. So anyway, so that's a set. The first thing is you have to see that the Nachash is just a lowly agent. Just it's not himself anymore. This is the Samech Mem himself. Are you familiar with the terminology Samech Mem? I'll just explain to you. Okay, so it's a name of an angel, and all angels have the name Aleph Lamed at the end, like Raphael, Oriel, right? Michael, Raphael, and the name for the angel, which personifies all evil, is that El by the word Sam. Samach Mem, which means a potion or a poison. But there's a lot of deeper mazim in that, and it is the custom of those that are familiar with that, we don't like to say it straight out, the whole thing. So we say Samach Mem instead of saying.
But it still has an L at the end.
Yeah. I mean, you see how it's spelled. Yeah. It's very interesting because there's a lot of discussion about the Samach and the Mem. Sam means a poison.
Sam is a poison?
Sam is a poison, right? The Torah could be a samachayim or a samamavet, a salve of life-giving, like a medicine, or a potion of death. Sam means a potion, usually means a poison. So, meaning he's a potion. He pours into the situation to get certain effects. Okay, so basically, what the Isha didn't see in having a friendly conversation with the neighborhood snake was this awesome, terrifying entity, this presence riding on top of him, pulling the strings of the marionette, so to speak. Okay? So that's number one. Meaning, where did the Nachash come from? What does he want? Right? Now, it's interesting because the last verse, the discussion of the previous verse was totally different vision. It was on the ground. Here's a character named, meaning we were talking about how they were naked, and we mentioned how Chazal said that the snake saw this, and that's what instigated, somehow it stirred his lust in him, and he thought that he was going to seduce Chava for his own purposes. And now we're saying something completely different. We're saying really there's no snake, and what was the motivation? There's actually the motivation of right? So it could be, I'm just suggesting that there's parallel realities going on here. It could be that what the Nachash did in order to earn such a wonderful merit of being the body for evil itself was, as a creature, he also had this problem. He was interested in Chava, but he didn't even realize unwittingly that he was, really what was happening was that he was being ridden by the angel.
Are you suggesting that he had this Tava Chava before or after the...
Meaning independent, meaning what's going on from the
Before-
Nachash's point of
before
view,
the
meaning the Nachash consciousness, it could be at the same time, meaning the Nachash doesn't realize who he really is. The Nachash thinks he's just a serpent,
Right.
and he's experiencing some sort of lust. But now we can explain how he could have had the Yetzer Hara, because really there's the Samach Mem on top of him. And that meaning what he's experiencing, but he's really being pushed. He doesn't realize that he's serving the Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Hara really has his own goal. That's what I'm suggesting, that there's two realities here. We introduced the story of the snake, meaning until now, right, we didn't even mention the snake, but in the context of that they were naked, we're saying, Chazal saying, that's the introduction for the snake. And that's the lead into why the snake does what he does. But that's only on the level of the snake. Really, now the Alshech is saying, really the way Chazal understand it is it's not really about the snake. There's something much bigger going on, and the snake's just being played. So I'm just noting that you have those two realities, and they don't necessarily have to be in conflict, but we're noting these parallel realities, and there's the Nachash himself, and maybe if you explored that, that could explain why he was susceptible to being, he was chosen. And meaning, remember, there's a bigger story going on here, and that is, this wouldn't happen without God.
Right.
So we have to get to that at some point. Why did God, God made a snake, God made the Samach Mem, somehow this is, right, okay, fine. So let's try one more paragraph. They're long paragraphs. Ume'asa. And what did he do? What did the Samach Mem do? Hechel b'signon kol asher yifatenu yitzra. He started in the style, in the manner of all that who are seduced by their inclination. Ki lo yatchil bereshito lemor lo yachis et kono. Because he would not start initially to say that he would not anger his creator. Raki kanes b'shalo yitbarach v'yetze behefko. Rather, he should enter within God's domain, and he will come out with the opposite. We're gonna figure out what all these words mean in a second. Kano de l'chol maskilei am, like is known to all of the enlightened of the nation. Okay, what's he saying?
You don't go straight in.
You can't,
go
right,
through the back door.
Right, you can't. Meaning the whole idea of getting your way is seduction, and seduction means that it's not a direct approach. You don't just, exactly like you're saying, you don't directly enter. You have to be sneaky. Raki kanes b'shalo yitbarach, he'll enter first. He can't get Adam and Chava to do directly what he says. Rather, he has to insert himself into God's domain, so to speak, what God had told them. He should start off with that which is the commandment that God had said, and start messing around there, and then afterwards he will come out, v'yetze behafko, he will cause the opposite of what God intended. Kanot l'chol maskilei am, v'chein amar, and that's why he said, af ki amar lakim. Right, so the first question was, in terms of the wording, in terms of the conversation, we said, why does he start off? What does the mean, af? The first word he says is even. And he's talking about the stuff that God already said that they could eat. And he says, what? God said you could even eat the other stuff? What? Right, we asked, if he understood what God said, if he had known, then he would have known the correct commandment. So he comes in kind of like feigning a confusion.
Yes.
Right? He's like, what? Meaning he's already suggesting something that may be related to reality, but is already so skewed. Right? Lomar, that's to say, his meaning is, what he means to say, is ki yikra yitzaveh melech osar o ava el ben yirtzeh. Could it be, ki yikra, when it happens, that a king or a minister would command, or a father to a son would desire, lo tachal davar plani, when an authority figure says to a subject, don't eat from a certain thing, asher behechali, which is in my yes, or sanctuary, meaning the things that are specially reserved in my special space, ki az tamuz, because then you'll die. Let's say a father tells a son, listen, I don't want you to drink from that liquor cabinet, my liquor cabinet, because it's going to kill you. Because you're going to die. Okay, so vihine bidvarav ele, and in these words, lo yibatzer mishtei havanos. Okay, so if a father instructed a son like that, or a king instructed a subject like that, and said, "Don't eat from such a thing in my domain, or you'll die." Okay, so there's two lo yibatzer. It will not hold us back from making two inferences. Mishtei havanot. One, o she'omer she'im shahadavar bilti mazik mitzad atzmo. One possibility is that he's saying that even though the thing itself that I told you not to eat does not have the power to hurt you itself, hu yimitano al sha'avar ritzono. No, he's going to kill, meaning God's saying that it's not, I'm not telling you, well, there's two possibilities. It's not that the tree itself or eating from the tree is going to kill you, but if you do that, I will kill you, meaning it will be punishment, because hu yimitano, he will kill him al she'avar ritzono, because he did not heed his will, meaning he what's the word in English? He violated his will. O efshar, the other possibility, hu ki hadavar ba'atzmo hu hamemit, the thing itself is what kills. Et ochlav betivo, those who eat it in its nature, right? Meaning there are two possibilities. When God says you're going to die if you do such a thing, is He going to kill you, or is He saying that thing kills? Vihine, ko amar elah. This is what he said to the woman. Hine lo yadati inyan hamita. He's like, the Nachash said, hey, I don't understand this death thing that God told you about. Im hitiv it la'ochla min eitz. Is that a natural thing that happens from eating from the tree? Shezehu, is that what the words are when God said, Ki biyom achalcha, on the day that you eat it, mimeno, from it, mot tamut, you will surely die? Oh, or alternatively, she'ein ba'achila mita mitabeket bo. There's nothing in the eating from it that will cause death. There's nothing. Death is not cleaving to this thing that will cause damage if you eat it. Rak, it's only she'onesh ya'anish. It's a punishment that God will incur. Hu yitbarach, blessed be He, et ovrei ritzono lahamitan, those who violate His will to kill them. Meaning, hey, it's like, excuse me, I know you have this whole arrangement with God going on. Tell me, I'm just curious. When God told you that you're going to die, is it because the thing itself is dangerous, or is it because He's going to get angry?
Right.
Because He doesn't like it. Like, why is He raining on your parade if He doesn't like it? What does He care? Why God tell you no? What does He care? What's He guarding? Okay? Vihine, ko amar la, hine lo yadati inyan hamita. I don't really understand this issue of death. Im hitivit, is this natural? La'ochlim min ha'etz, to those that eat from the tree? Shezeo, that's what God meant when He said, Ki biyoy machalcha mimena, on the day that you eat from it, motamutun, you will surely die. Motamut, you will surely die. Did God mean, she'ein ba'achila mita mitabeket bo? There's nothing about eating from that actual substance that death comes with that. Rak she'ano she'anish, He will surely punish, right? Hu yitbarach, the blessed one, and ovrei ritzono la'amitan, those that violate His will, and He will punish them with death. Vehechel kemitnaheg b'chasidut atzum v'rav, and he started this conversation in the manner of someone who is a very, very righteous person, somebody who's seeking to fulfill God's will beyond the letter of the law. Ve'amar, and he said, Hine meharoi, it would be worthy, who ki af ki amar elokim kilomar. Meaning, when He said af, even, when God said even from the trees from the other trees, right? What He's saying is, im shelo yeh hezek tivi la'ochel, if there's no bad effects that are latent in the eating, meaning God said you could eat from the other trees. So, meaning the eating itself is not what's going to cause death. Im shelo yeh hezek tivi, even if there wouldn't be a natural damage la'ochel, within the food, rak heyot ki amar elokim bilvad, and only because God Himself said that it will cause death. V'gam shelo yomar tzivoy la'anisha ta'over ki im amira ba'alma, and He didn't give the commandment just to punish whoever violated, just rather a statement. God said, on the day you eat it, you're going to die. He didn't say, don't eat it or you will die. He said, on the day you eat it, you'll die. So it sounds like it's a natural thing. And yet, God didn't, right? There's no death in the food. So he's making an argument, very weird argument, that maybe Chava shouldn't eat any of the fruit.
I don't understand that argument.
Okay. God sounded like he was saying that the death will be natural. It seemed that way. God's suggesting don't eat from it because on the day you eat from it, you'll die. And the Nachash is saying, you know what? There's nothing about the tree itself that's going to kill you. It's because God doesn't want you to eat from the tree. It's not because the tree is dangerous and he's protecting you. God doesn't want to.
Yeah, but
so
how does he go from
one
that?
second.
Yeah.
And therefore, if it's what about God wants, right? You see from the other trees, God only said you shouldn't eat from that tree. And he said if you eat from that tree, you're going to die. Now, I see you eating from all the other trees and it's not killing you. So it must be that really the tree itself, God's misrepresenting. Perhaps God is very, very sensitive. And God doesn't want you to eat from that tree. So maybe, if you really care about what God wants to do, maybe you shouldn't eat from any of the trees.
But God specifically said you should eat from the other trees.
Right.
That's going against a positive comment.
Right.
So how is he suggesting that?
I don't know, but the Alshech is saying that he's trying to be extra righteous here. And he says, Hine me'arayhu ki af ki amar lakim, even though God said, from all the trees you should eat, kilomar im shelo yeh hezek, meaning God said you can eat from all these trees, they're not going to hurt you. Right? Rakio ki amar lakim bavad, v'gam shelo yamar tzivu la'anish et over ki im amir ba'alma, hine l'kayim amaro, ro'oihu shelo tochel mekol ha'etz hagan. So he's saying the only reason why God told you that you could eat from those trees, right, is ki im amir ba'alma, right? He said you could eat. Hine l'kayim amaro, in order to fulfill his commandment, ro'oihu, then maybe it is worthy, shelo tochel mikol etz hagan, maybe you shouldn't eat from any of the trees of the garden, kilomar, afilu im amaro haya akula, even if his statement was on all of them. I'm not sure what that means. Give me a second here. Rizeh amro, and this is what the verse says, af, even, ki, lomar, to say, af ki amir bavati lo tochel mikol etz. Im shelo yeh hezek tivi v'gam shelo yanishchem hu roi l'kayim amaro. Okay, so even though there won't be any natural damage and he won't punish you, right? It is worthy to fulfill his statement even there too, and maybe you should not eat from the other trees. I believe that the Alshech is suggesting that, meaning he's saying that the Nachash is suggesting that she should not eat from all the other trees. Let's see where this goes. Azhe Shiva ve'amra, and then she answers him and says, "B'shtayim lo tzadakta." With those two preconceptions, you were not correct. Encha, I will answer you. Asher chashavta shu mikol etz hagan lo chenu ki mipri etz. Okay, so somehow she's understanding the snake to say that she shouldn't really be eating from all the other trees too, and therefore she's answering and she's saying no. God actually said, Mikol Eitz Hagan, from all the trees of the garden, you should eat, right? And the only one that I'm not allowed to eat, right? Ki imipri eitz asher betocha. I'm sorry. First, lochenu, it's not true. Ki imipri eitz nocha. We're supposed to eat the fruits of the trees. V'asher amarta shekpeidato yitbarachi al avor ritzono v'lo al mavet hanimshach mi'achila. And the fact that you're saying that what God insisted on was because of violating his will, and not because death is a direct result from the eating, gamzeino, you're also wrong. Ki im umipriha eitz lo tochlu, and because when God said, don't eat from that particular tree, pentamutu, unless you die, shehu ki mimenu timashech hamita beteva. She's saying that the death, she understood that the death that comes from eating from the tree is a direct result of the eating of the tree, and God is giving her good advice. So he came in with two assumptions. He's like, maybe God didn't want you to eat from all the other trees. And tell me something, is the death from, meaning he's suggesting that the death would be because God himself would kill, and not because it's a quality of the tree itself.
And she's saying, no, we can't eat from other trees.
We're supposed to eat from all the other trees, and the death is from the tree itself.
From the tree. It's not that God...
It's not from God, right. Okay. Shehu ki mimenu timashech hamita bateva, that from the eating itself, they will bring forth death naturally. V'alpi darko ramza ba'amra mipri eitz hagan ki schar mitzvos b'hai al maleka ki em achol peroteim ba'olam hazeh v'akeren kayemet lo l'olam haba. So when she says from the trees of the garden we should eat. So he's saying that that also means that, remember, the trees of the garden, we talked about, they're extensions of the schar of the mitzvah, right? So she's saying, even though ki schar mitzvot b'hai amaleka, Chazal tell us that the reward from mitzvahs is not to be found in this world. Ki im achol peroteim ba'olam hazeh, you don't eat their fruit in this world. Meaning, there are mitzvot that yield a fruit. Meaning they have repercussions and ramifications that are good even in this world, and yet their main import spiritually cannot be appreciated in this world, and therefore you have to wait to being in a different dimension to be able to fully live that. So the fruits are allowed. So she's saying in this world also there's a manifestation of the fruits of your goodness that you are meant to enjoy, because the Mishnah says Ki im achol peroteim b'olam hazeh, that there are things that you can enjoy the benefit from in this world, and the main benefit still lasts for him, awaits him in the coming world. From the trees, from the fruit of the trees of the garden. Hein perot atzei Eden, they are the fruit of the trees of Eden. Shehin orot ha-mitzvos, they are the light of the mitzvos. Kamforish l'mal, like has been explained above. No chel ba'olam hazeh, we can even eat them in this world. Whereas when it comes to sinning, there is no positive ramifications or extra fruit, so to speak, in this world from an evil act that you get to enjoy. Okay.
What does that mean?
Okay, so meaning we say that even though schar b'hai amaleka, that there's no true reward, meaning that which you accomplish in a mitzvah, the proximity that you gain, the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through a mitzvah cannot be fully manifest in this world. So we say hayom la'asotam, we do them today, u'lemachar, and tomorrow l'kabel scharim, that we receive their reward. Meaning today in olam hazeh is a place to do.
Right.
It's only in a later phase of existence, machar, yom shekulo Shabbat, that we can, right. So the Mishnah says you should know though that every mitzvah you do, there are mitzvahs that have awesome benefits in this world. And you're meant to enjoy them. So there's a Mishnah that we say in the morning blessings, right? That we talk about all the things that are big mitzvahs to do and that they actually impact your quality of life here on earth. However, right, when it comes to Averot, it's not like that. That's all he's contrasting. So he's saying, don't forget, he wants to remind us also that on some level in the story here, the discussion about the fruit and what you're meant to eat and what you're not meant to eat, we're talking about higher spiritual things. Mm-hmm. So, okay, should we do one more it's 11 o'clock. Should we do one more paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay. V'hosifa, and she added, v'amra, and she said, v'lo tiguba, and we're not meant to touch it. Right? God said, and you should not touch it. Ratzta lomar, she intended to say, she meant, ki gam ala davar hamevi lidei avera yesh mita. Even on the thing that causes somebody to sin, brings death. V'hu ki amra b'liba, and that's because she had said in her heart, Al ma zed tziva Hashem. Why did God command this particular commandment? Amar ki biyom achalcha mimenu motamut. Because, right? And why did God say, and on the day that you eat from it, you will surely die? Mahu kefel hamavet hazeh. What was God's intent by saying motamut, that you should surely die? What's the repetition of those two words? Achu ki biyom achalcha mimena. However, on that day that you eat from it, she'i efshar la'achila b'lo negia, it's impossible to eat something without touching it. Hem shtei hamitot. There's two deaths. So she's saying she was a big scholar, and apparently she learned all of Shas. She learned the Beis Medrash for a long time, and she knew that when God said, "You will surely die," there's two languages of death. There must be two fronts in an act of eating from the tree, that you experience two different types of death. And the Alshech is saying, since it's impossible to eat without touching, the touching incurs one type of death, and the eating another.
Oh, that's from the Mot Yomat.
Right. So let's see what he does with this. Okay, so Mahu kefel hamavet hazeh. What is this double death? Achu ki biyom achalcha mimenu. On the day that you eat from it, she'i afshar la'achila b'lo negia. You can't eat something without touching it. Hem shtei hamitot. Those are the two deaths. Ve'ein zeh rak echad ala negia ve'echad ala achila. God said, if you touch it, you die, and if you eat it, you die.
Yeah, but if you're going to die when you touch it, you won't get to the stage of eating it.
Ve'al zeh amra. And on that she said, v'lo tiguba, we shouldn't touch it. V'lo amra pen motamutun, lest we surely die. Ka'asher kafal hu yitbarach b'tzavatot adam. She didn't double it up like God did. Achuki he chilka hamito. She separated the two. V'alkein lo amar rak echad, akol achat mehena kamdubar. Okay, so he's saying that I'm not clear on the logic here, but he's noting that the introduction of the issue of touching it, right? What she's saying is that she inferred that the mot tamutun is lo tiguba pentamutun or lo tochluba pentamutun. That she's referring to, instead of saying a double death on eating from the tree, she said a single death on the two issues of either eating from the tree or touching from the tree. So she understood when it says pen motamutun, if you eat it you'll die, and if you touch it you'll die. So Shlomo is asking, what do I need both commandments for? You can't just say if you touch it. Why say if you eat it? Mm-hmm. Right? That's what you're asking essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, let's just do one other small paragraph. Vayi bisham-o, when the snake heard what she responded to, how she responded. Az charatz anachash et lishano. Then the serpent flicked his tongue and said, "Ve'amar lo ma tamutun, you won't double die. Shtei hamitot al shnei advarim. It's not two separate deaths on two separate things. Ubechlal ha'inyan lo ma tamutun me'atzmechem al teva ha'etz hamazik lo'ochlam klum." And not only is he saying, on those two different fronts there's no death, but he's saying that the death that's coming is not a assured death, an automatic death from eating. It's not an extension from the eating of the thing, but rather from God himself. Ve'enu rak mehasug hasheni, and it's only from the second type that you mentioned. Shememit etchem, that we mentioned. Shememit etchem alavor ritzono. God will punish you with death for violating his will. V'kavanato yitbarach, and his intent, blessed be he ba'amro, when he says ki beyom, on that day, mot tamut, you will surely die, derech knas, it's like a fine or a punishment, alavor ritzono hava, on those that violate his will. V'zot ta'anat ha'yetzer hara, and this is kind of the argument of the evil inclination, ki lefi ha'emet, because according to truth, tumat ha'avon nichrach b'chote v'ui mitena kanoda, because it's the impurity of sin itself which causes the sinner to die, as is known.
It's the impurity of the sin.
Meaning, we said it's the sin.
Not the sin itself.
Sin comes with death. It's sin that kills. Okay, we're gonna have to. Yeah, it's the sin that kills. Okay, we're gonna pause here, and we're gonna have to rediscuss this before we go further next time. Okay.
Go ahead.
So there's a lot going on. Okay.
Beautiful.
I just think you will